at one time I used to be a supporter of Mr. Ignatieff. However, I seriously question his motives right now because I don't feel that he's supporting the war resistors, and also the issue of continuing on with the Afghanistan war. I don't agree with him at all with that, so that's why I don't support the Mr. Ignatieff anymore. But after talking to Mr. Layden, I was really impressed when I had a chance to talk to him at the Pride Parade when he talked about Canada being a mixed match of different laws, and it's not one standard law all the way across Canada. And after talking to Mr. Layden, I was really impressed with what he had to say. And you know, I would support the fact that if we had standardization of laws all the way across Canada, because right now we don't have a universal health care in per se, each province being different. Whereas if we had a true universal health care where if any Canadian can walk into any part of Canada and basically just show their health card and get the exact same health care all the way across Canada without having to get special insurance, I mean, that would be universal health care. So I'm understanding what Mr. Layden was saying, and I was really impressed with what he had to say.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the challenges of Canadian federalism. One of the challenges of our the way our constitutional responsibilities are divided up here in Canada. The federal government has, through the Canada Health Act, has talked about universality, accessibility, comprehensiveness in terms of the basic values of Medicare in Canada. But the reality is, it's up to the provinces to implement all of those and provide the specific services to implement those ideals. So it makes it very tricky. But when you have federal governments that aren't prepared to stand up for those basic values of the Canada Health Act, then you increase the possibilities of a patchwork in terms of healthcare across Canada, and that's certainly something where New Democrats have been strongly critical of both the previous Liberal government and the current Conservative government, that they haven't been able to find the gumption they need to uphold those values. And part of the problem is that when the federal government unilaterally cut funding for health care to the provinces, cut funding for social programs to the provinces, many of the provinces just said, well, you're not going to tell us what to do. You're not going to. They took away that possibility of enforcing those values by acting unilaterally in that kind of way. So there would take some work to reestablish that kind of cooperation, but it's never going to happen if you don't have a government that's committed to those values. And you know, I think that there's nobody in Canada who would question that New Democrats, as the party of Tommy Douglas, as the party of Medicare, has that commitment. And the reality is that our Medicare program is only a fraction of what we actually envisaged in the first place. That we haven't implemented a Medicare system that matches what Tommy Douglas had in mind and what New Democrats have in mind. There's a lot of work to still be done there, a lot of creative work, a lot of important work, and I hope that we get that opportunity one of these days. Sooner the better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Bill, because what happened was Tommy Douglas, to me, when he started talking about stuff, I agree with much of what he was saying. And the funny thing is how this ties into my family. Mr. Douglas beat out Hazen Argue, who was the last leader of the NDP party. I think it was called CCF party before it turned into the NDP party. So Mr. Hazen Argue was actually my third cousin.
Cool.
So it just shows you how my family ties into the NDP party. It's just amazing. And, you know, I could find myself one day going back to supporting someone like Mr. Layden because of the fact is, you know, I want to see changes done for Canada, and I want to see our young veterans being protected. But we have a young gentleman here who's running as an independent in this upcoming federal election, and I just wanted to hand the mic over to him because he has a young child too. So I just wanted him to ask some questions around his young child and some other stuff. But I'm very impressed with him. I'm very impressed with what he has to say, and I just want to introduce him to you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Bill. My name's Kevin Kelso here. Just want to say I'm very much thankful for what you're doing and spreading the word out in regards to the cause of war resisting. I know that I personally would I don't know what I would do if I was put in your situation. You know, I have a son myself, and I just wouldn't want to have to face the choice of being separated from him. So what are you going to do when you go back to the States?
I think you're thinking that I'm Rodney there, Kevin, and I'm Bill Siksay. I'm a member of Parliament. So, I think we put these folks in a very difficult position when we suggest to them that they have to return to the States. Not only just in terms of the disruption to their families and the decisions that they have to make, but the fact that they're likely facing some kind of term of imprisonment, and some of those could be very, very serious indeed, because the penalties for taking the kinds of actions that they have can be very severe in the United States. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate for people of conscience. I think that there have been real flaws with the process of determining conscience in the American Armed Forces, even, and that process hasn't served Americans well either. So I think we put them at real risk, and we put their families at risk when we deport them to that kind of uncertainty, when we deport them from Canada to that kind of uncertainty.
And also, Bill, I just have some quick questions to ask you, because it looks like we're running down in time. Could you leave the listening audience with some closing words, last words that you'd like to share with our listening audience?
Well, I think you're absolutely right in encouraging people to be in touch with the federal government, to be in touch with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Jason Kenney. There are people who will make decisions about the fate of people like Rodney Watson. Peter Van Loan, who's also the Minister of Public Safety, he's the guy who's actually responsible for executing deportations. So I think he's another cabinet minister that has an important role in all of this. I think it's important to remind them of Canadians' opposition to the war in Iraq, to remind them of the action of Parliament in the 39th Parliament and in the current Parliament, the 40th Parliament, where a majority of members of Parliament called on the government to institute a special program to ensure that Iraq war resistors from the United States were able to settle permanently in Canada. We need that kind of program to follow through on our commitment of opposition to the war in Iraq. The government needs to do that to respect Parliament and the will of Canadians, and to make sure that people like Rodney Watson and others can continue to live here in Canada with their families, can continue to exercise their conscience and to build a new life here in Canada.